More news coming in. India-US trade talks have started. US-India trade talks begin. Negotiator from America, Brendan Lynch, is here for a day, and this is part of the ongoing talks. It's not actually a separate round of negotiation, is what is being clarified. ME is also part of the talks. After today's meeting, the sixth round of BTA negotiations will be decided. I'm going straight across to Aishwarya for more details on that story. Aishwarya, this is going to happen for a day today, and I understand this is an ongoing process, isn't it?
Well, one thing is very, very clear. Let us not take these as the sixth round of conversation. That is, the round of conversation will be decided after 24 hours. The next 24 hours, Neha, let me tell you, are very crucial for these conversations. The BTA, that is the bilateral agreement. India is looking at closing the deal by November, at least the first tranche of it. The US also now has given out green signals, and they are willing to speak about certain things. Now, this is the chief negotiator, Brendan Lynch, who's now flown down from the United States of America in India 44 hours, and we will see these talks progressing. The external affairs also are a part of these conversations, so we should hope that, we will get some positive news by the end of the day today.
Yeah, like you said, this isn't the sixth round of talks, but this is, of course, a negotiator who's arrived essentially from the US to have this conversation. The essential aspect of this is that India is now again on the talking table with the US, with the government expressing optimism that they hope to, in fact, lock this sometime by November, isn't it? Commerce Minister Piyush Goyal had spoken about the fact that they hoped that there would be some sort of certainty by the month of November. Later this year, US trade negotiator Brendan Lynch is in India. Trade talks are going to happen. They are, in fact, they have rather started as we speak. Both the countries initiating the talks for a just, balanced and mutually beneficial bilateral trade agreement is what we are learning from the government. This is in conversation for a bilateral trade agreement with India, and this is US Trade Representative for South and Central Asia. Brendan Lynch is in India. Talks are being held as we speak. India's chief negotiator and special secretary in the Department of Commerce is going to be, in fact, at the forefront of this as well. India and US, remember, have been negotiating for an interim trade deal for weeks together now. There have been reservations from both sides. From India on the US demand for opening up the agricultural and dairy sectors. From the US on this business being rather unbalanced in that sense. Trump tariffs had hit US businesses as well, and this was the fallout, remember, of the trade talks, which in fact in a way fell apart. $2,400 is the average loss per US citizen every year due to the new tariffs, 50% plus. 5 lakh jobs may perish by the end of this year alone. $115 billion of loss of the US economy. 40% increase in the prices of shoes. 38% increase in prices of clothing material. Also highest in that sense since 1933 is the effective tariff rate that India is hoping would eventually come down with the trade deal being signed. Of course, the source for this information is the Budget Lab, Yale University. A little more about the game of tariffs. US's demand market access for dairy and crops versus India's priority, protect the same. Our farmers restrict imports. Problem? There was no agreement on opening up of the agricultural markets, and that's where the deal actually fell apart. It didn't come through, it fell apart. US's demand stricter patent rules for pharmaceutical drugs. India's priority, maintain access to affordable generic medicines. The problem was stalemate on pharmaceutical regulations. These were the hiccups essentially. Then the US demanded free flow of data and easier market entry for companies. India's priority, of course, was data control and protection of local regulations. The problem here, disagreement over data and e-commerce rules. A little more about exports here. Exports beat Trump tariffs. India's exports grew 6.7% in the month of August to $35.1 billion, a second straight monthly rise in Indian exports. Trade deficit easing to $26.49 billion from July's $27.35 billion. Telling you more about, in fact, the conversation which is, in fact, underway as we speak. U.S. Negotiator is in India today, taking forward the discussions on what really could be a possible solution in weeks ahead. A U.S. Negotiator tasked with bringing India and U.S. trade talks back on track is in India, and the conversation right now as we speak is underway. India-U.S. back at the negotiating table with the arrival of the U.S. trade delegation, American team led by Brendan Lynch, who has a decade of experience in trade negotiations. The big question, will there be some sort of a middle ground that will be arrived at?